Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back to VEGA Conflict. And it's time to showcase the Vector. It is looking glorious. And I have to say, just the fights that I've played out so far, it feels a lot like phasing version 1.0 all over again, just overpowered. And some of you may be wondering what I'm doing here with the ship being completely backwards. I'm testing something. I wanted to see if the ship could fire completely backwards with its built-in plasma round when it exits phase. And it works just fine. And for that split instant when you come out of phase, it actually opens up the firing arc, as you saw, right there. And if you can actually have a target within that arc, you can hit them. And I tested on a multitude of targets. Now there are a few issues with it that I've found. And the main one that I saw was, if you focus fire on a single ship that is outside of the firing arc, the round will always fire ahead of the ship, no matter what. And sometimes I had a few issues, even when it was focusing fire on a target within the ring, I was trying to turn or move away from them, it wouldn't fire directly at the target and it would miss. And I don't mean like, oh hey, it's just missing because the target's moving. No, I mean it would fire at an angle concurrent with the current facing angle of the ship. So it was never directly firing at the target, and it was a massive gap between where it should have been able to hit. It was like it was trying to give the target lead, but failed. And so far, each and every single hit you're seeing so far is everything that I've tested it against, and every single fight has been either no damage or insta-repair. And this is the Overseer 150. I wanted to see how long it would take to burn one down, and you're seeing it at like 4 times speed. It took 10 minutes. And right there, what I was doing, I also wanted to test and see if the rotation speed was too quick for the server to register that a target had entered and exited the firing arc to see if it would be able to fire and just quickly spin in place. And as you saw, it did not fire, which was kind of a disappointment. And another thing that I was thinking of doing here was actually trying to wipe out the entire fleet with nothing but the plasma round, because I thought it would be pretty funny. However, as you can see, this is where the issue of focusing fire comes into effect, because even when the targets are within your fire arc, you're actually not firing on them, you're just firing out in front. Every now it does fire correctly, like that, but once you focus fire, even if they're near the edge, it just misses, or it fires ahead of the ship. So I was a bit disappointed by that, but other than that, the plasma round is actually a pretty nice addition to the ship itself. There are still a few issues with phasing, naturally, and we're going to have to wait until a couple of the updates happen. I believe that phasing, as well as the PvP resurging system for all ships in the game, will go live in March. Don't take my word for it, though, because the development team is still working on it, and they're working hard, as they normally do. However, there are a few targets and things like that that are... Well, lately some of the targets in my eyes, they've been a little bit lackluster, boring, or overpowered. And I started the day off well. I started off having dinner with my family after I crawled out of bed, basically went off to enjoy myself. And I came back, the first day I was logged into VEGA because I had intended on earning the ship. I had sent my behemoth into a fight, and as a bunch of other people told me, that was a mistake for trying to fight the target with the behemoth without having prior knowledge of what the setup was. And this is just a subtle reminder to everyone else. Always, always, always remember to scout the targets before you attack them, because it can save you from the annoyance of losing an entire fleet in the course of 5 minutes. And I didn't include those attacks because they weren't of the Vector, they were of the target stern the Vector, the Altarian one. But ultimately I just wound up completely ignoring the fleets. I just started throwing fleets away of Umbral tech against the targets to farm them until I had all the level 1 tech that I needed to be able to build the test fitting that you see here. And I went right down the list of targets, hitting just about any and all Umbral targets for the cargo fleets, the Overseer targets, and stuff like that, just because I wanted to see what it could do if you could farm for an instantaneous repair for each fight, or no damage or low damage per fight. And honestly, I was impressed by it because there was quite a few very, very good attacks where it went extremely well. And the entire time while I was fighting, I was not once worried about its phase ability due to the range of the ship. So the Pharmakon with the Vector, they feel extremely comfortable with phasing 2.0. However, as I stated before, we're going to be getting some updates to it. So this is good, but it's going to get better. And at the moment, my total thoughts about the Vector are, it is the first Tier 8 ship, aside from the Leviathan, that I've actually enjoyed flying and messing around with. Whether it be the system you see there where I'm using the plasma round and firing at the targets that aren't within the firing arc and kiting them around like that. It's the first ship that I've had a decent amount of entertainment with in the game since Tier 8 began, because so far everything has been... it's been a bit boring. And that's putting it politely. But with this ship, it hasn't been boring. I started off losing a fleet, which hasn't happened in quite a while actually, to the NPC target because I completely underestimated it. And just that sudden loss, as well as everything it took to get the ship, I think it was actually worth the loss, because after the annoyance and stuff like that, having the ship on hand and being able to test it, fight with it and stuff like that, it's actually pretty cool. Aesthetically, I like what they did with the rear of the ship being a tri-piece engine that is rotating. I haven't seen too many of those in their game lately with the anything relating to major motion on the ships. We've had a few animations recently for the dreadnoughts and stuff like that, but I mean the best one yet is, in my eyes right now, the Vector, because the aesthetic of the ship, it looks gorgeous. The overall firepower of the ship, I mean, the fact it has 4 weapon slots in Mark 1, it doesn't have to wait until Mark 6 for that additional weapon slot, that makes it all the more powerful than the Valraven at Mark 1. I had no issues with just about any of the targets, and it was extremely entertaining to just focus the targets down. I do have a few annoyances with the Astral and its single target damage. It has an outstanding rate of fire, I'll give it that. But the single target damage is actually lower than that of the Nova Driver due to the rate of fire difference. They have the exact same damage output, but the rate of fire difference is just where it really hurts at. So, a great weapon for while you're in phase, but it doesn't feel all that memorable when you're out of phase. The rate of fire, however, may be good for Umbral ships due to the damage output. It should be able to regenerate at a very high rate, provided you can actually hit the targets and destroy them. So just keep that in mind. And the next fitting I'll be testing, as I said before, last week, or the week before, I'm going to be going out of my way and fitting a Nova Driver to one of them and seeing what a mix of drivers will do as well. Because the in-phase fighting abilities, it's, as you can see, it has very few issues, but every now and then something like that happens. What you saw there, it actually was taking a while to reload, and it just wasn't firing, wasn't fighting, wasn't actually doing anything. And I've seen that happen quite a few times. And this is the second time I caught it on camera today. The other video, other clip I have isn't going in any videos right now. It might go in a spare clip at a later date, but it's going to be to help point out some bugs to the game and everything like that, because bugs do disrupt the game, and I do want to suggest that the development team fixes them or resolves them or tries to figure out what's causing them, because if it's disruptive of the gameplay experience, which already isn't all that memorable, it's going to leave a worse taste in your mouth than it already does for the game. So, I'm most definitely going to be making videos about those subjects fairly soon as I compile lists and stuff like that. But other than that, back on the subject of the ship, what do all of you think of it who have either saved up some coins from Commerce Module or have some coins from the Alliance War? Do you guys think the ship is interesting? Do you guys not like the ship? Is it what you thought it would be? Is it disappointing? Is it interesting? Go ahead and leave your thoughts below in the comment section, because I'm actually interested in hearing what you have to say about it, because To me, this is the new Apex for Pharmakon. This is like their best new ship just because of what it is and what it can do. And someone else, I don't know who, they posted a video of the Mark V Vector against a Mark V Valraven, and I actually don't remember, I didn't watch the entirety of the video, but it looked like the Vector was winning. And it's due to the phase state and stuff like that. And with the changes coming to phase, I think that it'll just be in a much, much better place. However, there are still the issues that I pointed out, such as with the built-in plasma round and how it fires and how it targets. There are a few issues with that I'll talk about in another video when I'm actually majorly focusing on the small aspects of the game that are, they seem bugged to me. They may or may not be. It might just be client side or something like that, and on the server it's actually displaying it all properly. But still, it's still disruptive, and I would like it to be fixed. So, Vector overall experience for me so far. Well, I love the ship for just about everything it does, and I mean the fact that I was actively flying it for most, if not all, of the fights that I was playing here. It's the first time I've done that in a while, because typically I just send the fleet in, let them do auto, and just more or less leave them to do their thing, and I just play another game. And I'm gonna go ahead and jump off the subject now, because this is the first ship that I've enjoyed in the game for most of Tier 8 so far. And I'm not going to ruin the experience by just running it into the ground by blabbing on about it now. Okay. So, next subject is going to be the final video of the week. This is not the final one. There's going to be two today. This one, and then one about 12 hours from now in the evening for me. I'll be uploading it fairly shortly after this one actually goes live, or a bit before. But it's going to be a concept idea that involves a certain android. And thanks to some more lore that happened in the game while I was actually asleep, when I logged in after coming home from dinner with the family, I managed to see exactly what was going on. And I thought, well, that actually works out in favor of the concept idea. So I was actually happy this time around that I didn't record it in advance, because that portion of the lore I would have had to make an additional cut for and add it to the video, except for now I can just add it right towards the beginning, get it out of the way. But this is going to be an interesting one, because it's a concept I've actually suggested before, but this time around I've put a little bit more effort into it. But there's not much longer. There's one more fight. Or, I think this is the final fight, actually. Well, that went down the wrong pipe. But so far, the Vector is more or less what I thought it was going to be in terms of how I was hoping it was going to turn out. I was hoping it would be what the Pharmakon needed, something to actually contest with the Umbral fleets so that they're not just being stepped on continuously. And I'm going to build my fleets of them up, test them, play around with them, and see what I can do. But there's not much else that I need to do. And back on the subject, since I'm done with a little coughing fit and trying to die by drowning in water, what I intend on doing is taking a concept that I've used before, reworking it, and actually bringing it more up to date with what I do now. And the concept that I'm going to be covering once again is going to be fleet commanders as a unique vessel within combat. And I covered this before a while back. I don't know the exact date it was published, but again, it was a while back. And I wanted to cover it again because there's been so many interesting lore aspects of the game recently that I just think it would be cool. But that's for later. For now, be safe out there, my pack. Happy hunting, and as always, I'll see you later.